Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 1109 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. I swear I only said it slow because I could not say my intro today, but also it seems fitting for the chapter. I was kinda sorta preparing to fake rage if we didn't get Vegapunk's message in the chapter, or I guess more specifically, it was implied that we had to go through all of Egghead and that we were supposed to get it sometime later because the message is actually everywhere else but here. So we didn't actually get the message, and that is somewhat disappointing, but it's mitigated heavily because I still expect it soon. We got a countdown going on, you know, this is like, I'm not actually a big fan of countdowns, but this one, man, I am ready for it. This is birdcage on steroids. I just love that Oda knows this. I love Oda's feel for the game. It's like that Willy Wonka meme. The suspense is terrible. I hope it'll last. That pretty much sums up my feeling. Is it okay? Is it sane to want to shit your pants? I'm just asking for a friend. God, what a time to be alive. Seriously, what a time to be freaking alive. You know how they have stages of grief? I really feel like somebody needs to design stages of joy. Like if you won the lottery. First, shock or denial. Did this really happen? Is this real? Am I being set up? Then like giddy euphoria. You think about all the things that you're gonna buy with that. Somewhat unrealistically. Last week, I was in stage 1 of joy. This week, we're full on stage 2. The heart palpitations are an official diagnosis. Look, I guess I'll stop filibustering this review. I just want to communicate, guys, that, man, this is awesome. Now let's continue to the chapter. Honest to God, part of what made this chapter so hype was the fact that we are continuing cover stories. It had been so long that I swear to God, guys, I almost forgot that cover stories were a thing that we should be looking forward to, that should actually be happening. How long has it been since the last one? I seriously just googled it because I honestly did not remember what was last. And I think part of my confusion was the fact that the Germa cover story bled into Vegapunk and Egghead. It's only been 33 chapters, but Jesus, man, those 33 chapters felt like a really long time. But you know, aside from the hype of having a cover story itself, being in Wano is like a triple win. Yes, in fact, Oda, don't mind if I do. This is where I want to be. But there's always new people coming into the community that have been catching up through the anime, etc. Might not understand the hype of a cover story, so just to explain really quickly, these cover stories matter, and they will bleed into the actual story in some form or fashion. With the Vinsmoke cover story, first off, we needed to know how they escaped Big Mom and Whole Cake Island, but second off, we got to see Blackbeard take Pudding, for instance, so Oda obviously feels like he has things that he needs to set up from Wano, which, you know, just my knee-jerk reaction is like, yeah, you do. Yamato and Momo, the country of Wano itself, and potentially Pluton. This cover story has the potential, for sure, to be absolute heat. But I would say it's kind of a weird entry point here, following the island of Onigashima as it sinks to the bottom of Wano. Are we actually going to see Pluton? That didn't seem too likely to me. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the thought that occurred to me is, like, who do we know that is currently supposed to be in, like, the bottom of Wano? Big Mom and Kaido. I'm just saying. Either way, my expectation here is the country of Wano is in danger, right? That was kind of the premise of Yamato staying behind in Wano, is that they need a guardian. Momo, of course, is pretty strong and has a lot of potential, but he needs some help. Maybe he needs some training. I honestly cannot wait to see where this goes. But to the current events of the Egghead chapter itself, a really cool aspect of this that I'm pretty sure that Oda thought about is Vegapunk seems to have hacked Marine Denden Mushi. Honestly, I loved all the panning around to the various islands, everybody preparing for Vegapunk to deliver his message. A lot of really familiar faces. But a country very conspicuously absent is Wano, and probably the reason for this is that there is no marine presence in Wano. I wonder if that's important. I suspect the same thing will be true with the country of Elbaf, right, that we're just about to visit, because they're two countries that are not affiliated with the world government. And they also happen to be two countries that are probably very related to the Void Century history that Vegapunk's gonna drop some teasers about. But anyway, guys, it looks like it's officially confirmed that Vegapunk is dead. The dead man switch theory is confirmed. Is it possible that Vegapunk revives himself in some way? Sure, I mean, this is the future island of Egghead. There's technology here that we couldn't possibly imagine, I feel like. Somebody like Frankie, as a kid, was able to rebuild his body after being crushed by the puffing tongue. Certainly, Vegapunk must have been a master surgeon in order to separate his brain like he has and create all of the altars in the first place. We could have the Futurama meme, right, of like a head in a jar, attached to some sort of robot. But I gotta kinda admit, I would prefer if the Stella remained dead. Just narratively, it feels like his sacrifice is so much more impactful. Like, this moment for Vegapunk reminds me of something like Gold D. Roger I'm not gonna die, partner. Why wasn't he gonna die? Because he was going to change the world and they would never forget him. That was Dr. Hiro's speech. A man dies when he is forgotten. And in this way, these characters embrace their death in a way that I found to be very profound. Likewise, I think that the Stella has sort of fulfilled their destiny. There's nothing else that he really needs to do. And at the same time, even if the Stella dies, Vegapunk is not really dead, because he divided up his brain and has alters. Recently, we've drawn some parallels between Vegapunk's story and Kuma's story, and I kind of see Vegapunk's alters almost like his children. And you know, scientifically speaking, your children have half of your DNA. They're kind of like clones. Vegapunk's children just have a part of his brain. Somebody like Lilith is practically like an 8-year-old with an ancient brain. So in my mind, it's kind of powerful in a way for Vegapunk's children to finally be free to fly the coop, to create their own individual destinies. It's definitely similar to how I see Kuma and Bonnie. But of course, you have to bear in mind that this is the world of One Piece, and so will a character die, won't they die? It can never really be too certain. Maybe this is extra true with Vegapunk. But anyway, we do see the message begin, and it seems prudent to give the world some time to prepare. So he will wait 10 minutes. This could very well be the most consequential 10 minutes in 800 years. Before this chapter, I heard several people say that there is absolutely no chance that the Gorosei and the government have to stop Vegapunk's message. And while I don't think that they will succeed, this chapter lets us know that there is a possibility. If they manage to destroy Vegapunk's lab, the signal will probably stop. I am just praying that this message goes all the way through. But we can't ignore the history of One Piece, right? All of the precedent of the story beforehand, these messages always stop short. Clover and O'Hara, Sabo and Lolosia. I'd be lying to you guys if I said that I wasn't at least a little bit scared. Like, I'm absolutely sure that Vegapunk reveals something that'll make our jaws drop. That has to happen. However, Luffy, the Strats, and the Vegapunks absolutely do not have unlimited time here. Think about it like this, right? The message begins in 10 minutes. What if this recording is supposed to last for an entire hour? Hypothetically, I certainly think that Vegapunk could talk for an entire hour. There's just no way that the Strats last that long. They are actively trying to escape the island. Gear 5th has a time limit. So like, full disclosure, I don't actually think that this recording is supposed to last an hour, but even something like 10 minutes, right? That means that Luffy has to hold off the Gorosei and Kizaru the entirety of the Marines for 20 whole minutes. I can't be the only one who thinks that this is one of the most compelling setups in the entirety of One Piece. This is some Hour of Legends shit. One thing Luffy always does is he helps fulfill people's dreams. That's what he does, right? Vegapunk clearly had this dream of revealing the truth to the world after he has died. Even though the Strats desperately want to escape, Luffy is almost obligated to see this through. There was definitely a feeling before this chapter that maybe everything was happening a little bit too easily. That feeling is gone. How long do you guys actually think that Gear 5th can last if Luffy tries as hard as he possibly can? I can't see it being active for more than 10 minutes. And if he does actually push it to the absolute limit afterwards, he will need rescuing. Guys, this has me absolutely stoked. We talked a lot about the parallels between Egghead and arcs such as Sabaody and O'Hara, but more recently, we've talked a lot about Enies Lobby. Just like Enies Lobby, there is an active buster call on the island. Just like Enies Lobby, the Strats' purpose for being here is to rescue somebody. Even assuming that the Stella Vegapunk is dead, just like Enies Lobby, they have basically succeeded in their mission. They have all the other Vegapunks. They just need to leave. But just like Enies Lobby, Luffy still has something that he needs to accomplish which prevents them from doing that. Lucci is even frickin' here. It couldn't be more fitting. But honestly guys, the reason that this has me so excited, the thought in my mind is that the Lucci-Luffy fight was one of the most top tier in the entire series. I've maybe never felt Luffy's pain more than there. And by the conclusion of it, he literally could not move. I now see Egghead ending in a very similar way. It is just crazy how different the circumstances are in order to create possibly the same moment. But my headcanon is that Luffy's gonna push Gear 5th longer than he ever has before. He is going to surpass his limits. And this is what's going to be required to fully activate the ancient giant robot, which seems to be powering up through his heartbeat. You know, I got some comments recently that I was actually considering, like thoughts, for instance, that the ancient giant robot was not going to be an ally like we all assumed. Instead, it was going to be an enemy, like its last order from the Void Century was to destroy Joy Boy. Maybe Joy Boy's climactic last battle was in Merijois, so that was where the robot was ordered to go. But in my mind, this theory is absolutely nuked by this chapter. Before, feeling like, maybe it's too easy, we might need to include some extra danger, to now, no more danger necessary, we need help. So the robot's gotta do something, and I think it could play a role similar to the Going Merry in Enies Lobby. It can rescue Luffy, even if Luffy loses the ability to move. But anyway, to go back to Vegapunk's message, I think that you guys should just prepare yourselves to to lessen your expectations for everything that Vegapunk could reveal. Vegapunk obviously knows a lot of things, but how much can he actually say before time runs out? So to lay all this out there, I think it's very important that Vegapunk fulfill Clover's dying will. He possessed the Scholar of Ohara's research. He can finish what Clover started. So in my mind, a lot of this message is actually things that we already know, we as readers. It's not as though Vegapunk can actually reveal the Void Century. Ohara's constructed history was incomplete, and we already heard a bit about this from Vegapunk in the arc, and his conclusions were very similar to Clover. The poneglyphs contain small fragments of a lost history. The Scholars of Ohara were killed for trying to share this story. The government is afraid of the Void Century. They do not want the world to know that there once existed an extremely advanced civilization, this great kingdom. We know that this kingdom had an enemy and it was defeated at the end of the Void Century. Afterwards, the world government appeared. It is logical to assume that the world government was this kingdom's enemy. So if the Void Century was erased because it was some sort of inconvenient truth, and this kingdom felt it necessary to carve their history on indestructible stones so that their history is preserved, it begs the question of what the fight was all about. While Vegapunk doesn't know the answer to this question, the very same as Clover, a clue to it might be found in the Ancient Kingdom's name. So I'm pretty well convinced that we have to get the Ancient Kingdom's name. Right now, there is nothing that could happen that would be more fitting than Clover and Ohara having been shot before he could reveal the name, and in Egghead, after Vegapunk is shot, he reveals the name. And that's pretty much the biggest Void Century bomb that I think Vegapunk can drop. And as a side note, it's just kind of interesting to me that I'm assuming that Robin actually already knows this name and has known it for the entirety of the story. But yeah, this is what I'm sure that Vegapunk will reveal. I also think that there are several things that he could reveal that he is probably not going to. The Sun God Nika. I see no reason for Vegapunk to bring up the Sun God here in this message. Bear in mind that this was actually recorded in the past before Vegapunk had met Luffy and sort of come to believe him to be the Sun God. Before then, that was sort of a myth that I don't think that Vegapunk really bought. It would be strange for him to bring it up. I also find it unlikely that Vegapunk will bring up the Devil Fruit. I know he's the Devil Fruit expert, but this message isn't about revealing science and technology that he's discovered. This is about truth the world needs to hear. That's why he recorded it. So in my mind, the two most important things that Vegapunk should know a lot about is the history of the Void Century and the history of the present. This is the more interesting conversation right now. How much is Vegapunk able to reveal the dirt that he has on the government? In my mind, if the message is cut short, this is the part that will get cut. It's possible that Oda's objective here is for the Revolutionary Army to reveal this sort of stuff and not Vegapunk. So we can't have Vegapunk usurping the Revolutionary Army's role in the story. But if it goes down like this, you should just prepare that your expectations initially for what might have occurred from this would definitely change. What the Revolutionary Army knows will undoubtedly break the world. Revealing the name of the Ancient Kingdom, however, I don't think will have such immediate and drastic consequences. Not to the same level. You guys will know from my last review, I think that the name of the Ancient Kingdom is most likely One Piece. That is my bet. If you guys disagree, that's cool, we'll find out soon. Anyway, just roll with me for a moment. If it's something like One Piece, you have the One Piece is real moment again in a different way. People would now possess some context as to what the One Piece could be. Essentially, it will inspire their imaginations, which is a fitting concept. Like, this has always been the point of the One Piece. It is so poorly defined that it can be anything. Because it can be anything, it then becomes what everybody wants. They imagine the One Piece to be what they want. But beforehand, this had been largely restricted to idealistic, optimistic dreamers. Like Luffy as an example, he doesn't have a problem believing that anything could possibly exist. That treasure could be anything. Literally anything. Like in Jai and Luffy's interaction with Bellamy, right? Luffy had no problem believing that a sky island existed with no proof. Not even an idea for how this thing could even work. But Bellamy is just as important. He represents the other side of the coin, and essentially the mindset of the majority of the world. He needs evidence. He needs a rationale. It needs to make logical sense. And so in my mind, this is the point of Vegapunk's message. He will succeed in making the entire world believe in the One Piece. He has actual evidence that the Ancient Kingdom was in fact advanced beyond your wildest dreams. If this kingdom had a treasure with the power of technology, it can now realistically, rationally, and logically be anything. The entire world will want it. But when the people across the world hear that the One Piece was related to this ancient advanced kingdom, with a treasure so valuable that it could be literally anything, and in fact is probably going to be considered everything, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is you're going to inspire another great age of piracy. It'll be total anarchy and chaos, but not necessarily as extreme as the entire world turning on the government. But anyway guys, Vegapunk can only reveal truths that he actually knows. So another thing that I think that he won't reveal is the existence of Imu, because I'm not convinced that Vegapunk knows that Imu exists. Once again, this seems like the purpose of the role for the Revolutionary Army. Sabo actually encountered Imu and reported this to Dragon. They now know, so I feel it will be them that will reveal this. But yeah, this feels like as good of a segue as we're going to get regarding Dragon and the Revolutionary Army. We can actually see them in the chapter preparing to turn on Vegapunk's message. The Revolutionary Army is not going to make it to Egghead. I don't think so. There's just no way. Kamabaka Kingdom is located in the Paradise portion of the Grand Line. It's simply too much ground to cover. I know that many people's hopes and dreams are going to be crushed by this. Many an agenda has fallen here in Egghead. Oda is ruthless. But you guys already know that a big component of being a One Piece fan is patience. They will eventually do something. Clearly, it is not yet time. But what it is time for is the reveal of the Gorosei and their powers. Bro, Oda is cooking at absolute godly levels right now. This is the kind of thing that I live for. Did I expect this? You better believe that I didn't. Am I hyped for it? Yes, sir. The end of this chapter is absolutely breathtaking. It seems further confirmed that something very strange is going on with the Gorosei and their powers. But either way, Saturn puts his hand on the ground. 4 summoning circles appear, and we're left believing that Saturn is calling his mates. I am shaking. I'm literally shaking. This is so phenomenally epic. Talk about exceeding expectations. I am on the floor. It doesn't even matter that I don't believe that Luffy, crew, and allies are going to defeat the Gorosei. In fact, I'm absolutely certain that they don't. Maybe there was a chance that Luffy could defeat Saturn and Kizaru. Maybe, despite the fact that Saturn has yet to take any damage, and that is a lingering mystery. But yeah, with all 5 Gorosei here, there is absolutely no way. But man, I'm just excited to see them fight. People were wanting tension. Here it is, at 1000%. This arc has become pure survival in a way that I don't think that we've experienced since Sabaody. I've already told you guys that I'm all about the parallels. Both Luffy and Kuma have punched Saturn very similar to how Sharlos was punched in Sabaody. With this arc, Oda has geniusly combined the endings of Ohara, Sabaody, and Enies Lobby in a way that is just like, is this real? Is this real, man? I feel like I'm back in stage 1 of joy. Hell, maybe Kuma isn't done yet, and just like he did in Sabaody, pops all the strats to safety, or the ship, or something. Honestly, I don't care anymore. Let Oda cook. I'm here for it. But yeah, let's take some deep breaths here, okay? One of the mysteries in the last chapter was the strange appearance of Saturn. As I said in my last review, he looked a lot like a fish. Like suddenly he wasn't conscious at all. The lights are on, but nobody is home. Head totally empty. And so in this chapter, we might have an explanation for this. Saturn is talking to the other members of the Gorosei. While he does so, it's possible that the devil fruit takes over his body, similar to the awakened jailers in Impel Down, or pre-time skip Monster Point Chopper. It's possible that Saturn's ability to do this is related to his devil fruit, or related to one of the other Gorosei's devil fruits. But I gotta be honest with you guys. I think that this is something else. I think that this pentacle power is something else. There is something very wrong with the Gorosei. So here's my theory. Oda is a paralleling master. He parallels things in every which way constantly in ways that we probably don't even pick up on. But in Egghead, we were introduced to Vegapunk and the concept of altars. Altars which can communicate directly via brainwaves. Vegapunk himself admits in this arc that all of his technology is less than what the Ancient Kingdom could do. We also pretty much know that the Gorosei and Imu are from the Void Century. I definitely think that Oda intended this similarity. The Gorosei work in a similar way as Vegapunk and his altars. And if you want to get full tinfoil conspiracy, it's very possible that Imu is the Stella. This might explain why the Gorosei cannot take damage. This is also really fitting because we talked about the similarities between Imu and Pain or Nagato from Naruto in a recent Zoro video. I'll go ahead and link that in the description. But basically, it's a Zoro-Eye theory that you have never heard before. That might change your opinion about Zoro-Eye theories. All I'm gonna say is it makes a ton of sense to me for Imu to possess immortal puppets that he can control. But yeah, despite saying all this, I don't actually think that Imu's powers and the Gorosei's powers are the same as Vegapunk. Everything about Vegapunk is related to technology in a very scientific way. We actually touched on this concept in another video that you should absolutely watch about Sanji's powers. I'll link that in the description as well. In that video, we heavily discussed a real scientific logic behind some of the things that Sanji is doing. But ultimately, the point wasn't to perfectly explain Sanji's abilities using known science. We ended up combining physics with theology and science fiction, which Oda has done throughout the entirety of the story. Basically, Vegapunk's abilities are pure One Piece world science. But even to him, I think that the Gorosei's abilities are going to seem like magic. It could just straight up be Imu's devil fruit. But right now, I really believe that the Gorosei Gorosei are just basically floating consciousnesses. Their bodies aren't entirely real. That is why they do not take damage. And as I've suggested from other previous theories, it would not surprise me for them to be literal beings from hell. But I seriously do recommend you guys check out that Sanji video, because we have a moment at the end of this chapter where Sanji notices the Gorosei's black flames. And we know that Sanji is a character related to the production of flames. A parallel might exist there as well. So in that video, we talked about the power of love. Love is very real in the world of One Piece. It is the literal explanation for a ton of things, not just related to Sanji and kicking Kizaru's laser recently, but things like Rouge carrying Ace for 20 entire months. So the power of love could have some inverse, like the power of hate or something, you know? It could be that Oda plans to reveal some sort of clue to the nature of Sanji's abilities through the Gorosei. Just something to potentially be excited about. But yeah, I suppose that this review wouldn't be complete unless we talked about Luffy. Luffy is awesome. There's obviously some secret to permanently damaging the Gorosei that he is not aware of yet. So in that way, it kind of makes this fight a little bit unfair. It's almost like we're back in Wano, right? Where Luffy has something that he needs to learn in order to damage the big boss. And the same concept was actually very similar with Big Mom and King. Law and Kid essentially cheated in order to defeat Big Mom. They never actually penetrated her skin, and her abilities were never really explained either. The same was true with King. While King's flames were on, then he was pretty much invulnerable. Also not really explained. So Luffy has a problem here, and until he figures out a solution to this problem, the Gorosei cannot be defeated. But in my opinion, if Luffy knew the secret, he would win. He is stronger than a single member of the Gorosei. 5 of them, however, how are they gonna deal with that? Seriously, Zoro better finish up with Lucci right now. Right now. I honestly think the Gear 5 is about to blow our minds. That's kind of what I think. Is Luffy gonna defeat the Gorosei? Is he going to kill a member? No, I don't really think so. Just the act of survival for any amount of time would be utter insanity. So yeah, with this being said, there's been some thought for a while now that Saturn might die here in Egghead. Now with his mates arriving, yeah, I don't see it. Not saying it can't happen, but his likelihood of survival just shot up to like 99%. And that 1% is Imu actually killing Saturn for failing. So how will Luffy escape this threat? What will Vegapunk reveal in his message? Find out on the next exciting episode of One Piece. What a freaking time to be alive. Have I said that enough this review? Maybe not. What a freaking time to be alive. I don't think I've ever been more hyped, ever. At least since I've caught up, straight up. But yeah, as always, I'm curious as to what you think, whether you noticed something from the chapter that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to check out my book, The Booms, link in the description. Like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified. You guys already know. Have a wonderful day.